Giggle HQ has a security team. We don't need random Twitter people. Moving on.
Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Grey Hats podcast. I'm Jay.
I'm Saskia.
I'm March.
Oh my god.
Let's try that again. I'm Jay.
I'm Saskia.
I'm March.
I hate you all so much.
Let's just start this again.
It's fine. Just keep rolling.
Hello and welcome to Grey Hats podcast. I'm Saskia.
No, but that's the wrong order. Just, Jose, say your name.
I'm Jose.
I'm March.
I'm Jose.
And I'm Harriet.
And for the next hour and a bit, I guess, with the Grey Hats. Has anyone seen anything interesting over the last month in terms of cybersecurity stuff?
I saw some cool stuff that Saskia has to show.
So let's start with Saskia then.
So Tippy and I have been having rather a lot of fun with the Pwnie Awards.
It's pretty good ones.
Some of it is all very professional about like best bug and like celebrating really cool stuff, but we weren't interested in that at all because we're assholes. So we've been looking at the lamest vendor responses and we've been looking at the most epic fails.
Best categories.
They were the best ones.
Yeah.
Chippy found a particularly nice one. This is how innocent she is. She's such a sweet summer child. She found the NCC crest one.
Oh God.
The most epic fail.
I just thought you'd enjoy it, Saskia, because you just love all the certificates.
I do love a search.
You love it.
I love all the InfoSec drama.
And the drama, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
There was a lot with that one, right?
NCC are great.
They are. However, the crest thing,
I'm sure absolutely nobody in this room immediately jumped on that downloaded file.
No,
I didn't.
No, of course not.
I never downloaded any of those.
So for anyone that that might not be aware, there's this cybersecurity certification you can take. Lots of the large companies, the large pen test companies, will take that cert to kind of show that they're meet a certain level, I guess. As part of that, there is an exam that you have to take. It turned out that NCC had basically copied all the labs and were distributing that to people that work there.
Some very harsh accusations there, Jay. Are you sure you're not saying allegedly? That's what
Allegedly.
I can add in an allegedly. But
Cut it in later.
Yeah, exactly. But the interesting thing is somebody released all that information. So I guess it was probably an intern that was there or something, a junior maybe.
Well, they don't know, do they? They're not sure if it was accidental or whether it was a whistleblower.
So from what I remember, it seemed like it was accidental. Someone just put it online to share with people. Obviously, in the hacker community, that we had to have this big thing about sharing information. Information should be free. We all want to learn.
Sharing.
Exactly, sharing is indeed caring. And so what I suspect happened is somebody was there, junior, saw all this awesome material, decided to share it, not realizing that it broke like a load of NDAs and showed that this exam, whilst it should be used to like certify people, was actually just being used like easy for people at NCC to go and complete. To be honest, I think this was a pretty well-known secret anyway.
It was an open secret in the industry, realistically.
It was definitely an open secret. I think what kind of shocked people was the pass first time stuff that was written all over it.
No.
And then go to so-and-so if you want to get like past papers, and we all know that past papers are completely banned. So the Pwnies have put certifications issued by CREST, an accreditation body recognised by the British government, are a must if you want to get serious about cyber in the UK. The secrecy and apparent difficulty of the test has created a cloud of mystery around the certification for outsiders for a long time. But not anymore. NCC groups streamlined the certification process by creating a step-by-step guide. So they literally created step-by-step guides. Pre-filled tests that you could see, and then even mocked up labs for their people. We're not sure whether it was an insider, a penetrator, or somebody who was just generous enough to share pass on the first try, inadvertent commas. So that's literally the paper, pass on the first try, materials which they put on GitHub. And whilst handling, so the other thing is that there's an NDA, isn't there? So you have to sign an NDA when you're doing this.
If you take one of the exams, you're not allowed to talk to people afterwards about the types of questions that were on the exams.
So they're saying, and whilst handling of similar NDA violations should be straightforward in other cases, NCSC is one of the largest teams worldwide, but Crest's previous chairman, who stepped down as part of the ongoing investigations, still works for them. So this is the other thing that seems to be quite scandalous and a bit salacious, is that the one of the chairmen for Crest, or one of the board members for Crest, is one of the people who's very high up in NCC.
Yeah, I think like for a while, a lot of the advice for more junior people was to try and join NCC so that you can upskill quite quickly to pass.
I mean,
these certs.
Jay's version of the story is quite boring and naive, to be honest. I mean, in my head, what happened was, first of all, like allegedly, all of the industry allegedly knew that allegedly NCC had all the exam material and shared it internally.
Allegedly.
And then, I mean, my opinion, I mean, I'm just guessing, of course, and speculating, but I'm pretty sure that what happened was someone, you know, a disgruntled employee, before they leave or they didn't get the promotion they wanted or whatever, they stole all the material and just shamed NCC in the public. I mean,
maybe that was it.
I think it's that as well.
That's much better story than some intern. Oh, I didn't know it was breaking 2 or 3 or a dozen.
I think Jose is correct.
Well, don't forget, it came down quite quickly, though, if I remember.
Yeah, because they sent a copyright thing to GitHub.
So GitHub took it down?
Yeah, on behalf of NCC.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, not before multiple people cloned the repo, though. I mean, not that I would know. I never, of course, never downloaded it.
I never downloaded it.
Nor would I.
I don't need to download it.
Nor do I.
Because you already have it, because you used to work for NCC.
No, I never, ever went for any of that stuff. I never tried to do CRT. It's never been in my, blood. That kind of thing bores me.
I know, because you used to work for us.
Right. It's I mean, it's a thing that's never really, I don't know, grasped me in any meaningful way. But
because it's a racket.
I mean, to be fair, it's not like everyone doesn't in the industry have their own CRT courses. The NCC one might have been a bit more blatant with its advertising internally, you know, past first time. But I wouldn't say they're the exception to the rule here. I think the whole certification thing is just bad. It's just not how we should be doing things.
Yeah, valid point. So what else is happening in the Pwnie Awards, Saskia?
The epic fail one I liked was the Twitter one, because they actually were awarding it to the people, the hackers themselves, for not like utilizing the hack better. They were like, they just didn't even get enough money for it. They were just like, this is all you did. I just enjoyed that.
They took over people's accounts, like high profile, and then they just like said, give us some Bitcoin.
That gets a lot more money than people think it does.
Yeah, but you can check the wallet. I don't really think there was a lot that they.
It was like $120,000 or something
in Bitcoin at the time.
But it was like 6 months ago or something.
Yeah. Bitcoin is now worth what, 3 times that? It's not more.
Yeah, it more than doubled in like a month.
Even if it doubles, that still only makes it $240,000, which to say you had all of Twitter's high-profile accounts for an hour and what you could have done with that. That.
Well, not much, really. You're better off making money, right? What are you gonna do? Tweet a picture of something unmentionable from Trump's accounts?
How much do you think Barack Obama's DMs could be sold for?
Not much, because I guarantee that Obama's DMs are probably A, not exportable. B, I would imagine that they don't even I imagine his account has never been used to DM anything. And C, maybe. The moment you look at that, you lose your access straight away.
In my head, I imagine that they're talking about like UFOs and stuff over Twitter DMs, but maybe you're right.
Baba is probably sending Clinton a thing saying, "Congratulations on your great debate victory." Like, the DMs on Twitter are not going to be worth that much for the most part, except maybe Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sounds like a good one.
I'm with the ponies on this one. I just think it was horribly unimaginative.
No, I mean, I wouldn't turn down whatever it would be now. Probably it must be close to 500K, right, Jose?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, that's $500,000. I would love that. Now, if you don't mind, I've got to go and count some Bitcoin, guys.
Yeah. Completely unrelated.
Bitcoins are worth, for one Bitcoin, it's worth about £15,000 right now.
Yeah, it was over $19,000 yesterday, and when I woke up, it was 17 and something. I woke up with like 10K less in my portfolio.
There was the giggle stuff happened in the ponies as well.
Oh,
right?
you're just jumping ahead of yourself there. So we did also, so like I say, we were only really focused on the stuff where it was rather failish. But yes, we did get the giggle stuff. The giggle stuff is nominated in the lamest vendor response, but we do have a little bit of competition there. So Chippy quite liked Trend Micro.
Oh, that was the one where they'd actually coded it to pass the security test, and then an 18-year-old like found out, and then they just denied it, even though it was in the code and it was really obvious.
So yeah.
Well, they just denied that the hack happened, or
no, it wasn't a hack. They had I'm not sure exactly what it was they created, but they created it to just pass the test, pass the certificate, and then someone saw this in the code, and apparently the code is just generally really terribly written as well.
So they say here, security software shipping insecure code and dirty hacks is nothing new, but Trend Micro, their rootkit buster was so bad that Microsoft wouldn't certify for it for Windows machines. Instead of fixing their code, Trend Micro decided to cheat on the certification test. Whilst playing the WHQL process could be an admirable feat, Trend couldn't get this right either, and they were caught out by a smart 18-year-old. Bill Demacapi, I think. Demacapi. Nice that he gets named in his. We didn't get named in ours for giggle.
We didn't get named in ours.
Despite clear evidence of cheating, Trend Micro has the audacity to deny any wrongdoing, blame Demacapi for looking for attention over resolution, aka not shutting up about the project problem until it's been covered up. For this, Trend Micro has been honoured with the Volkswagen of Tech by journalists and driver ban from Microsoft, and they are. But will they also receive the pony this year?
I'd like to receive a Pwnie Award, even if it's for like lamest vendor or whatever.
I feel like if Giggle win it, you can kind of take that as a sort of side win.
We can take some credit for that, yeah.
I've been saying that. I've absolutely been saying that.
Maybe if Giggle wins, you can ask them to send you the award.
That's true. I
mean, they don't need it. They have a security team.
So when I saw that Giggle had been nominated, I tweeted, who's going to put money on Sal saying that they've won awards for security if they get the pony?
That would just be amazing.
Yeah, it would. It would be perfect.
Just beautiful. There's no other way of saying it. I know that Chef's Kiss doesn't really translate over a podcast, but
so we still think that Sal was lamer than Trend Micro. Maybe not that much lamer, but definitely lamer. But then IBM, they were pretty lame too.
I won't hear a bad word about IBM said in my podcast.
Honestly, Chippy and I thought that when we talked about Trend Micro, all you two would do is just go on about how much you love Microsoft. But this month, apparently it's IBM who's sponsoring you for this look that you have. Is this where you get your money from, March?
No. However, I just want to say that I've recently installed AIX on my laptop and it is running smoother than ever.
Okay, so IBM. Believe it or not, there are still researchers out there who just want to do the right thing and report critical vulnerabilities privately without looking for compensation.
Why would you want to report vulnerabilities? Do you just want to lose money? Do you just not want money?
We've already spoken about this. This was episode 1. We're on episode 3 now.
It didn't reach a conclusion for him.
And it'll come up every time it needs to.
Unfortunately, this doesn't quite work with bureaucracies like IBM. When Pedro Ribeiro, oh look, they named him.
Not that you're bitter or anything, Saskia.
Me? Bitter? When Pedro Ribeiro first tried to inform them about pre-auth remote root exploitation in a data risk manager, oh the irony, Big Blue neglected to report that because the paperwork wasn't right, Ribeiro reported a cert/CC not via HackerOne. On the second try, IBM closed the issue as an out of scope. because it affected product and is only affected product that this isn't brilliantly written, sorry, because the affected product is only available to customers with enhanced support. Edit that bit out, Jay. It was written fine. I just can't read.
No, leave that in.
Definitely keeping that in.
Fortunately, a well-deserved O Day dropped by Oh God!
All right, Saskia, have a little breathe.
Fortunately, a well-deserved O Day drop put IBM in the right direction after just a little more than 2 weeks. Even their enhanced support customers could enjoy the benefits of this patch. So yeah, a pretty big bollock drop by IBM there in terms of responsible disclosure.
IBM have had a very different policy to disclosure for people for a long time, and a very different policy to vuln patching for a long time, because IBM basically invented everything independently to the rest of the entire tech world. They don't treat things the same way. You should never approach IBM expecting things to be treated
Okay, so
that
that's
way.
interesting. I thought it was because they were a monolith, but it's not that they're a monolith. It's just that they're outside the box.
Yeah. IBM literally invented everything from VMs independently at different times, all the way from like the 70s up. Their whole approach to computing is completely not what what would I call it? The zeitgeist is for everyone else.
That's a good podcast word.
We really found like Alistair's crush here. Like, what a fanboy.
I love IBM. There's nothing to add to that. I love IBM. They're an amazing company. They helped support Red Hat. They bought Red Hat. They supported a bunch of open source products that are really great. Their mainframes are affordable. When you buy IBM, you know you're buying something you can trust.
This is Ali's vows to IBM. This is beautiful.
Well,
I can never tell whether he's being serious or not.
Do we need to add a disclaimer here that the podcast has been sponsored or something?
I would work for IBM, but they're so good that I don't think I could make it. That's how good IBM's quality is. IBM.
One more time, Ali. One more time for the road.
IBM. Machines you can trust.
Yep. Did anyone see that there's been a new release of Kali?
I did not see that there was a new release of Kali. What's new? I'm kind of curious.
So most of it is not super interesting, right? So now they're using ZSH as the default shell, which is kind of cool for some people.
I've used ZSH for like fucking 6 years.
So now you can use Kali, I guess.
You could already use ZSH in Kali. I mean, I've been using it for, again, 6 years or something.
Yeah, but it's the default shell now.
It shouldn't be the default shell.
So, but it is, yeah. I'm not a fan. Like I prefer Bash. I'm a Bash user. Speaking of Bash, there has been some cosmetic changes to that, just to make it look more like ZSH actually. But the more interesting thing that they've done is they've partnered with Byte Leader. You know him?
No.
So he's the guy that made this tool called CrackMapExec.
Oh, I do know CrackMapExec, yeah.
So it's a post-exploitation tool for like Active Directory networks.
Yeah.
So what he's done recently is he's been thinking about the fact that a lot of people spend time making these products and open source tools and stuff, and make no money from it. And large companies, utilize those tools to make lots of money. Now, part of me sees what the problem there and sees what he's saying. The other part of me says it's an open source tool, like you work on it because it's something that you're interested in. But in order to fund like extra work, what he's done is he's partnered with Offensive Security and Kali, and now Kali gets update to that software 30 days before anyone else.
That's disgusting.
So yeah, it's a weird thing. However,
it's an abomination unto God.
Reading his blog post, I definitely see where he's coming from. The fact that he was saying that when he started writing this software, and the tools and stuff, that he expected to have people donating code. He expected to have people donating code, providing updates and fixes, getting donations from community, and none of that has happened. And what it means is that supporting these tools is a difficult process. It takes up a lot of time. And so now with the partnering and like the sponsoring and stuff, it means that smaller open source tools can continue to be developed. It's a weird concept though. I mean, in my mind, open source software is done for the community, and if companies benefit from it, then that's just something that happens.
So all hyperbole gone. I see why he's done it, and that's his own choice. But I think that's a very bad move because, I mean, ultimately you end up creating a weird ecosystem where people get stuff 30 days in advance. You end up people who, I don't know, it's not leveling the playing field, which is what open source should be about.
Exactly.
Everyone should have access to everything in open source. I
agree. However, what I've seen happen as an alternative is that a pro version is created. And the pro version has more features, and then there's an old open source version. It happened with what's it called, Synergy, which is the virtual KVM software. It's happened with so many tools that I try to use nowadays, going back to some old stuff that I used to use, and then there's always a pro version with all the new features. So I guess this is maybe a good middle ground where he can start to make some money from it, encourage people to provide fixes and stuff, because if there's been a large enough fix or pull request made, then he will give whoever that person was some vouchers for some OffSec training, because of course it's sponsored by OffSec. So I think it's an interesting concept. I'm not a fan of it in the point of view of the ideal open source mentality, but I do understand where it's coming from.
I would be more okay with it if it was because I mean it's features, right?
Yeah.
I would be fine with it if it was performance updates or specific performance things that maybe Kali were letting him know what they were using. Maybe if they were using, I don't know, weird shit, and he could tweak it so that it performed better. But new features is not something I'm cool with.
But you do get them within 30 days. Then it gets rolled out to everyone.
I suppose you could think of it as in Kali are the idiots who signed up to free bug testing. So fair enough.
Yeah, I'm interested. If anyone's interested, if you go to pochetta.industries, I think there's that's the company, I guess, that he set up in order to talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah, and so that was kind of the interesting thing that I saw that they added to Kali. Some new.
I really hope it works out for him.
Yeah, me too. It could be a really interesting model. You might get some large companies starting to sponsor some of these smaller ones for features sooner. I guess we'll see.
I know we talked about it in one of our previous podcasts where I was saying that the government should fund or government should legislate software that's going to be disappeared, but I also believe that the government should at least partially fund some of these smaller projects, because I mean so many of them die, right? Exactly. And so many of them do, as you say, they become you get the pro version, and then that is it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the end of the project, effectively.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see the industry is changing a little bit as we become more professional. People are thinking about money. It's not just releasing tools for the sake of it. I could understand that. You've put a lot of your life into some software for fun, really, and then there's some massive pen test company that's making hundreds of thousands of pounds by running scans and charging their customers even more. So. Yeah, it's kind of I guess we'll see what happens. But as well as that, there's just been a few new tools added to Kali from what I've seen. So that was in.
What tools, if you don't mind me asking? Do you know? And it was anything interesting?
I'm not sure.
Does Kali support ARM yet? By the way, I can't remember.
So I think they do.
I remember there was an unofficial one for a while. I don't know if there's an official one.
AWS went down, I think, today or yesterday or in the night.
It was last night, I believe.
It was about 9 hours ago, I think.
I didn't notice that.
You would have if you were on Slack.
I've not noticed.
Maybe you were.
Giphy was down, Jamel. Giphy was down. Slack was sending regular updates about their attempts to fix Giphy.
I think we now know what March's sleeping patterns are.
I don't sleep.
Exactly.
That's it.
So what happened with AWS?
So it went down, and half the internet went down
It
with
was, I believe it was US, was it US East one or US West one or something like that?
Yeah.
One region went down, and yeah, it caused a lot of problems for people. Not for me, because I use IBM's cloud. But
The main complaint like people seem to have was that their Roombas, which they had on a certain time to hoover their house, had stopped working. I was like,
Okay, that's actually totally my favorite. Somebody on Twitter has said that the first news that they got of AWS being down was Zach Whittaker tweeting that his Roomba wasn't working. So yes, at the moment, they're not saying what happened or why, just that it went down. So
it does happen though occasionally, doesn't it?
It's a pretty
yeah,
spectacular outage, isn't it?
well, remember that there's only 12 data centers in the US, I believe, in total for Amazon. And then there's what, 3 in the UK?
There's Ireland and Germany as well.
Yeah, but there's not that many in Dublin. I think maybe 1 or 2. And I don't know how many. I think there are more in Germany as well. But yeah, there's not. They're like, if a pipe breaks somewhere, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's something that does happen. The fact that they've managed to avoid it so far is insane.
I guess that's the problem when you have so much reliance on just a couple of like services. It will happen, and I guess it's just gonna happen more and more.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it definitely will happen more and more.
I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, to be honest.
Did anyone see the cyber alarm, the police cyber alarm thing? No. So I'm not entirely sure what this product does. It sounds like you install it in your network. It's aimed at small and medium enterprises. You install it on your network, and it gives you an alert when it detects malicious traffic.
A network intrusion detection system.
Basically an IDS. But it's provided, I think, by like the police or something like that, and it's given to like small companies for free. And it was looked at by a guy called Paul Moore. And so what he did is actually he saw a tweet about this, thing saying, police cyber alarm is a free tool to help members understand and monitor malicious cyber activities. Sign up this way, blah, blah, blah. So he tried to sign up. He tried to get an access code in order to download the product. He didn't get one, and he was contacted by the police with saying, well, we can't actually just give you the product for some reason. Here is some like user guides instead. So he started looking at the user guides to see how it worked. And inside that, I think there was a screenshot to a link, and he followed that, managed to download the VM, installed the VM, read the documentation. It was saying things like, put this in the DMZ, have it running. If you pull it into if you need to install it on an actual machine, you can this way. If you do that, you've got to disable SE Linux for some reason.
There's a number of reasons why you need to do that.
No good reason to do that, right?
Sometimes.
But okay, but so just in that, I mean, it shouldn't be something they say in their documentation. You got to disable SE Linux to install this software, this like security software.
No, definitely not. They should have policies that can get around
exactly.
it.
Why isn't DI asking for one of those then?
One of these tools? I don't need one.
Well, but then you could be safe.
I have my own monitoring.
What do you use to monitor, Jack?
Security Onion.
And then you might allegedly use it for research.
So yeah, this would be a very good thing to research into, because so he got the VM, started looking at it, obviously out of date software, out of date versions of PHP. Then he managed to find remote command execution through one of the web pages. Apparently just lets you run commands. So again, you run this on your network. I guess
authenticated or unauthenticated?
I believe unauthenticated, and this is supposed to be running on your DMZ, so it should be available to the internet, right? So then he demonstrated, reading the passwords file, and then even accessing internal Samba shares and stuff. It had cross-site scripting on it. The encryption. So basically, what I believe it does is it captures a load of your network traffic, encrypts it, and sends it to the police servers so that they can analyze it for malicious things. firstly, I wouldn't do that. That seems like a terrible idea. And secondly, the encryption key was hard coded, so it's just a static key that that anybody would be able to see and decrypt the traffic. It turns out that the one he was looking at was actually an old version, hence the reason why it was a link in the documentation. He did manage to get a hold of the more recent version, and it was just as broken. So yeah,
that's harsh.
So he says here that CyberAlarm is an insecure, poor designed / engineered wrapper around OpenVAS. So I'm not really sure.
Wait, if it's a wrapper around OpenVAS, then it shouldn't be detecting any network traffic.
So that's exactly what I thought.
Vuln scanner.
Yes, it's a vuln scanner. So I don't understand how that ties into their claim that it analyzes network traffic, which is what they are claiming. Maybe there's a couple of different services and things there.
Probably, if it is though, then it's probably just TCP.
Maybe it just captures traffic and then runs it against OpenVAS plugins to see any patterns.
That's not a bad move.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I've not seen it.
But all of these black boxes are essentially just as bad, right?
So I've done pen tests on some, and they are the most insecure things I've ever seen. Any security product is just terrible. If it's something you plug into your network. Honestly, I mean, I don't know. I guess you guys have also done pen tests against these type of systems.
Yeah, you can't see what I'm sitting on right now, but it's actually a throne made of Odays from those systems.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they don't want to fix them, or very rarely want to fix them. What they do try to do is stop you from reporting them and getting CVs and stuff. They definitely try to discourage that. But yeah, a lot of these systems are just terrible. It's hard, right? If you're a small company without much budget, trying to find good tools that you can use to help stay secure is a difficult thing for sure. You got to put a lot of trust into these companies.
Are you drinking scotch out of a bottle?
No, and I'm also not smoking a North Korean cigar, Saskia.
So that means yes to both of those things. I guess the only last thing I want to talk about was there was an RCE in MobileIron. Did anyone read about that one?
I heard about it, but I didn't read too deep into it.
I didn't read about it, but I'm interested.
Okay, so MobileIron is a like an MDM. So basically phones. The company wants to do bring your own device or manage their internal phones or whatever. They all connect to the MDM, and then you can push out configuration things and manage them, make sure they're all secure. So used by a lot of companies.
I've had a MobileIron installed on devices before.
Yeah,
I've even tested it.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of us have. The implementation of the configuration. But so it's used by a lot of people, including a lot of companies, including Facebook and other massive organizations. And there was a vulnerability found in I think a few weeks ago, maybe. Either way, sometime in late 2020, with a 9.8 CVSS score by a guy called Orange Tsai, I think TSAI. I think he's this Chinese hacker. So it was kind of cool the way that he managed to exploit it. It was kind of a basic thing in a way, like Java deserialization, but in order to actually get it working, I had to jump through a few hoops. I think it was in the management area, so and that was behind Apache. So there was some Apache rewrite rules to protect it. They managed to bypass that, and then bypassed a few other things. Eventually managed to get deserialization. I believe he reported it to MobileIron. They fixed it. But
that's a hardcore goal.
It was a cool one, and quite a good write-up as well. Especially, I'm not sure of all the details, but there was some interesting things to overcome that he managed to do. But then it turns out that Facebook had not updated for a couple of weeks. So whilst he was monitoring the internet for who was running this and how they had whether they had updated or not, noticed that Facebook hadn't updated it and managed to exploit it. Got a server. I got a shell on the Facebook servers, and then reported that as a bug bounty. So yeah, it was a good write-up.
Do you know how much you got from the Facebook bug bounty?
He didn't say. He didn't say.
That's a bit savage because that's a 0 day.
Yeah. And I mean,
it's very
it
nice.
was patched. It was patched by the time he exploited it on Facebook.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's still a very nice vuln. He found the vuln.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Props to him. I'm just gonna,
Yeah. And he,
thumbs up, dude.
yeah, it was
Hopefully you
cool.
hear this.
But it's a proof of concept was made available in September, I think. And it's being exploited by ATP groups and malicious actors and stuff. So before we move on to the main topic, electronic voting. Anyone else saw anything?
Nothing to share.
Now my mind has gone blank because I did have a story, but it'll come back to me.
In that case, electronic voting. This is obviously
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, something that people have been talking about a lot over the last month or so. I think more than I've ever heard people talking about it before. Jose, I believe you're a fan of it, right?
Yes. I mean, it's not that I'm a fan of it. I'm just baffled on how we're on 2020 and this is not like the standard everywhere.
We can get to the moon, but we can't figure out how to.
Like, what the hell, man? Like we've put man on the moon. There's cars out there driving themselves, but what? Putting a fucking radio button? Oh no. That's too complex. How can we make the radio button secure? No.
It does seem kind of insane, doesn't it? And it would definitely have lots of benefits.
I'm going to interject here. Yeah, sure, we've done all these things, but also we just had a massive AWS outage already, like literally yesterday night.
Yeah, and your current voting system would go down with a single match, like the strike of a match with fire.
Just burn all the ballots.
Yeah. That's it. So AWS has an SLA of like 99.99999% availability. And your alternative is like, oh, this piece of wood would destroy everything.
So in my head, I had it that you had it doubling up as a dating website. And if like you matched with somebody, no one would be able to vote ever again. And I kind of love that.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
I mean, I just think that technology is still, like, let's be fair here, tech is still in its infancy, right? For all that we talk about, we put men on the moon. We put men on the moon using like analog computers and things in some cases, or extremely ancient things. Tech hasn't gotten to the point where I think stability is a guarantee. I think that is my main argument against voting.
Sure.
Not so much that I think
that's why you have stuff like fault tolerance, and if one system go down, you have 300 other ones to fall back on.
I'm very familiar with fault tolerant systems, but even they, like, let's take, I don't know, tandem nonstops, which were fault tolerant machines in the 70s and 80s, or we can take IBM System Z, which is a very fault tolerant mainframe. If you're looking for a mainframe, I would recommend an IBM.
Well, yeah. But I mean, you gave me one example, which is from the 70s, and then the other, which is a single mainframe, which is a single point of failure. If I can burn it down, then
single
the whole
family
mainframe goes
also
down.
It's impossible to kill it. Trust me, I've tried.
You can implement fault tolerance in the design and architecture of whatever solution you're deploying. And
you trust the government to do that?
It can be heterogeneous. It can be geographically, separated. There's lots of ways to make this secure.
If you were making these systems, I would be fine with it. If you had infinite money and you were making these systems, absolutely. But the people who do not have infinite money, and they're not you.
Saskia, do you trust these systems?
What I find really interesting about all of this is that everything's being twisted to fit the narrative of the person that's talking about it. So they're dangerous when it fits us. They're not dangerous when it doesn't fit us. Even now, the people from the DEF CON villages are changing the narrative. We've then had Trump tweeting stuff from the DEF CON voting hacker village as well. In terms of whether you trust it or not, I wouldn't ask me. I'm not a specialist in this area. I'd look at Matt Blaze, who is a specialist in this area. What I found really interesting was the fake whistleblower, the fake Hillary Clinton whistleblower, who put out that tweet saying that he had like a 50 meters swimming certificate and had once got like an MVQ in cooking or something. Matt Summers, I'm now literally referencing you for that hilarious tweet, which had me pissing myself laughing.
So this was the guy that tweeted all his his background and accreditations and stuff, and then started speaking about like election fraud and things. Chippy, whilst Saskia looks up the name of the dude, what are your thoughts? Would you trust electronic voting?
I would trust it, but I think a lot of people wouldn't trust it. And I think that is where a lot of your problem would actually come in. It's not that they're impossible to build securely. I mean, I don't know enough about it. Obviously, you guys probably know the security side of it more, and you're going to have different opinions about it. But I think it'd be more that a lot of people wouldn't trust that their vote was being counted anyway. So in a sense, would it even work? Because if people don't believe the voting is working, then is there any point in going through all that trouble?
That is a great point, and a far more interesting one than March's, by the way, with fault tolerance. But regarding that, I mean, there's so many ways you could do that. So first of all, you could have third parties verifying the code, and you would trust the third party. Also, you could have this be open source and anyone could check the code.
That doesn't necessarily make it more secure, Jose.
I'm not saying it's more secure. I'm saying it's more transparent so that anyone can verify the code. And then they can trust it because they can look at it. And also, I mean, it's 2020. Just put it on blockchain. There you go. Boom. Solve it.
So a lot of these systems, they do actually print out a paper like receipt as well. Because I'm not sure of the details, but I think there was a case where the FBI said that one of the electronic like voting registration databases was breached because they were using electronic voting.
I think you're correct.
I think that's in Arizona, maybe. And so
sounds about right.
It wasn't breached because it was using electronic voting. It was breached because they sucked. That's different.
Well,
two different things.
Yes, correct. The implementation was insecure. It was rolled out. And because there was no paper trail, there was no way to validate what happened.
Okay,
And the FBI.
That's great. I don't like the paper solution just because any machine can just print a piece of paper. It doesn't mean that your vote counted. But put it on a blockchain. Anyone can check every single vote. They can see that how many people voted, who they voted for. I mean, it can be private or not, but you can see that this ID voted for that guy. You can count the votes yourselves.
Have you got a particular blockchain implementation you'd recommend?
I mean, it would depend on the properties and characteristics that people are looking for in the solution. Like if they do want some privacy, you would have to have some form of indirection where you wouldn't have your name or actual ID associated with the vote.
Something like XMR, right?
Well, yeah, as long as you could, verify the transactions afterwards, and you would know your votes because you know your ID, and you might be able to check it, but you wouldn't know, everyone else's votes.
So I think that's a great idea. Jose solved it.
No, I didn't solve it. Blockchain has been doing this for years. And before blockchain, there's consensus protocols like BFT and whatever that sort out, fault tolerance, including malicious fault tolerance, where, people are lying in the network. They would still agree on the correct value for stuff. So, I mean, for decades, there's been solutions to this problem. It's just nowadays, it's so ubiquitous that it's unfathomable. Oh, is that the word? Yeah, unfathomable. Yeah. So I got it right. How it's not like widespread and everyone is using it.
So there could be some good implementations if people just invested in it and did it. So I was reading about the different types of electronic voting systems there are, right? And there's I think paper-based electronic voting, where that's where you like make a tick on a piece of paper, and the hardware just reads it and scans it and then tallies it up. And then there's direct recording electronic voting systems, which is like just a device with buttons, whatever. But I think it just collects the votes locally, and then they need to be counted and then shit.
Yeah, or they get sent off to a batch to a server somewhere, which is again.
So yeah, that's public network DRE voting systems. Yeah, and they get all like collated and voted in like a single place or something. So yeah, I didn't quite realize there were like these different types of electronic voting systems. Does anyone know which countries actually use electronic voting?
The US uses electronic voting systems for sure. Estonia does as well. I want to say Finland
Brazil?
too.
Brazil
does have some electronic voting, yes.
I think in Estonia, right, you can vote from like wherever you are in the world. At least in some of the elections that they have.
I mean, that's two really good examples actually, Brazil and Estonia. So Estonia, it has the best like electronic system for government related stuff. Like you can open a company and manage your company and hire people, do your voting, pay your bills, sign contracts, everything. You can do it over the internet. So they have like a really modern system. Again, like it's not like they're in the future. It's just like they're in the present and everyone else is in the past. And in the case of Brazil, they're not as evolved technologically, but they do have mandatory voting. And in a country like Brazil, where there's 200 million people or close to that, you can imagine what it is to count 200 million votes. You can actually imagine it fairly easily because it just happened 3 weeks ago. And they don't have the problems that happen in the US, supposedly, first world country with top tech, to count, fucking pieces of paper, and nobody knows where the paper come from, where there are people watching the counting, all this stuff, which I mean, I'm granted it can all be fake news and drama, whatever. It would never happen.
Polarization.
It would never happen if there was electronic voting. So just the fact that that there's all this discussion around it and bashing the democracy in essence. There's so many ways and reasons to bash democracy. The actual act of voting shouldn't be the one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But I mean, I would argue that all the problems in the US are caused by political polarization more than they're caused by any real concerns, right? Like
but by removing that means of polarization, you already reduced a lot of it, right? Because there's people now doubting.
But you can't. You won't be able to remove the means because polarization isn't logical.
No, they'll still find a reason to doubt the tech, even if it was e-voting, because they even more so because they wouldn't understand it, so there would be more fear.
Well,
that's
if
true.
they can verify it, it doesn't matter if they understand it. It just matters that people actually know that it can be verified. And anyone, arguing against it or, arguing that it's manipulated or whatever, that is the definition of like a conspiracy theorist. That's it.
But people are going for conspiracy theories these days.
But there's room for it. If technologically and mathematically it's impossible for the conspiracy theory to be true, then they cannot go that route. They have to find a new conspiracy theory.
That just sounds like something a lizard person who's in charge of the elite would say.
So in an ideal world, I guess we all agree that electronic voting could work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in an ideal world.
But we're not an ideal world, right? The UK government has spent a lot of money on the track and trace system and not delivered it. There has been cases of electronic voter fraud happening. Where do we think we are, as of now with the systems that are available? So I know there's a lot of hardware issues, right? With physical access to a lot of these devices, it is possible to run Doom on them, for example. Change votes. I think there was.
You got a problem with Doom?
Freaking love Doom. Maybe not on a voting machine.
What we're saying is, well, paper's not secure. Paper's really easy to make a difference to. I mean, we know from our own elections in the UK that all you need to do is rock up and say who you are. It's actually illegal for them to ask you for ID. So I know where March lives. I know his full name. I know all of his details. All I need to do is turn up to his polling station and go, "Hi, I'm March," and they have to let me in and they have to let me vote.
So, given that these devices do have issues, I mean, we can't say that they don't, right? If you have access to these devices, you can do whatever you want to a lot of them.
Yes, but that's not necessarily going to always be the case, because there are things like security verified kernels, right? Mathematically verified kernels. We can actually, that is not so much the issue that I'm worried about, really. It's more like the availability and the our networks, right? TCP/IP, all of that stuff is not made for
but if you run the voting period for a longer amount of time, then you kind of get around that. Someone would have to bring these systems down for maybe a week, 2 weeks.
And I mean, sure, TCP/IP was not made for electronic voting, but there's application level protocols that can compensate for that.
Oh yeah, let's just put the band-aid on the TCP/IP.
Yeah, well, you can put the band-aids all you want. The truth is that that the application logic will handle whatever a TCP IP can't. That's it.
I don't.
It's a fucking checkbox, man. It's not the end. Like right now, as we speak, there's a Tesla on the way to Mars. Okay, there's a Tesla Roadster.
Yes.
On the way to Mars, and you're telling me that we can't have 2 radio buttons.
Yes. Do you want Elon Musk to be in charge of this?
Is there a way to augment the voting, electronic voting, with a paper trail? Maybe that's the way to do it, right? So
forget the
electronic
paper
voting
trail.
happens.
Have a blockchain. That's it.
I'm talking about more about in the in the current time, like what's happening now.
What there are blockchains right now. What are you talking about? I mean, in a 4 years election period, you can implement the whole system. There's no reason to have paper in 2024.
I am kind of agreeing with Jose to my own disgust.
You've convinced them.
What we should have is an electronic voting system, a la the typical one, and then we should have a blockchain as a backup. I think that's the way to go.
I think I can't remember which country it was, but it might have been Estonia, where if you can also vote by paper, and if you vote by paper, that overrules your e-vote. So if anyone didn't trust it, they could just go and put their paper vote in, and then then it would overrule anyone who could potentially be voting as them. I think it was Estonia, but it might be someone else.
Which is something that I think is kind of important, because there are people from different generations. People have different relationships with technology and different trust with technology. So I think it needs to be a hybrid system whilst we are in the generations or the multiple generations that we have at the moment. A better distribution of wealth and people actually paying taxes means that we'd have more money within government spending to be able to invest in things like electronic voting and feed children.
I mean, if we use the US as an example, since it's the most recent and chaotic example, it's not like the US government is poor. I mean, their budget is on the trillions of dollars, which there's no man with that much money. And they spend, billions of dollars in warfare and all this other stuff. So it's not like they lack money. It's just that it's badly invested, and the people investing is the government.
So people have a vested interest in government swaying a certain way, which is why they donate enormous amounts of money.
I mean, people like Zuckerberg, for example, he donates to both parties simply because he wants them both on his side. I mean, it is also the fact that the US government is just incompetent when it comes to using money, as all states are.
Exactly. Thank you. Finally, me and March agree on something.
I think you say that every episode. There's one thing that you agree on.
They go through a rocky arc, and then eventually they end up.
Oh my God. Like, this is a historical event, in what, 6 years or more that I know him. And we finally
agree on a bunch of things. It just happens to be the state sucks.
Every podcast that we do has an element of rom-com, which is you and March. It's the rom-com bit of you and March. It's you meet across a crowded room, you hate each other and don't agree, even though you know that you're fundamentally in the core, your views are the same. And then at some point you meet in the middle and that love is cemented.
And magic happens. So you were talking about the benefits of electronic voting, right? I guess the question really is, do the benefits outweigh any like negatives? So obviously more people voting is always a good thing, easier to vote.
So what exactly is the negative then? Because you didn't specify any negative.
So I guess, I mean, I'm trying to struggle to find one, to be honest, because I actually think it's a good idea, but I guess the cost
to implement never going down and an election being delayed or in other ways altered, which again increases the distrust.
What is the cost of all this uncertainty and societal chaos that is happening with the US because of the vote?
I would say from a privacy perspective, there are potentially issues that people would be worried about.
I'd say probably fewer privacy, because if you can vote from your own home, you don't have to worry about being kind of abused on your way there or feeling threatened. I guess like another disadvantage, what was I going to say? Never mind, I'll come back to it if I remember.
Okay, so another disadvantage, wait, which one was the first one? Oh, the costs. Yeah, but I mean...
So cost. Oh, so trust, right? So if people don't trust, even if the system was perfect, if people don't trust it, maybe they'd be less likely to vote, which is something to consider. Like, the reason why we are doing this is because we want to know what people want to do, and if people don't trust the system and we're not getting that voice, there's some implications there as well.
I think the trust is probably the main issue with it, because I don't doubt, like Josie said, like the technology is there. Obviously, it's there. Companies already use that. Like, you can make a company that's secure, and the money is there too. But it's just that people wouldn't trust it because they don't understand it. Whereas people understand a piece of paper going in a box.
But I mean, let's revisit the logic of what we're saying here. Like, we're talking about, I go to a place, where multiple people are watching me and trying to influence me, and with banners and whatever. I put like a tick in a piece of paper and put it in a box and then I never see it again, and then someone else who I never met, I didn't see, I do not know, takes that box, takes it to a closed room again, which I do not see, and I've never been there, and they counts the votes magically, and suddenly there's someone that is elected. And how can I trust that? There's so much room for mischief there.
I'm not saying it's logical. I'm just saying these are people who won't use contactless card payments and stuff.
People aren't logical.
This is just people who just fear technology as a whole.
I prefer voting in person. I don't trust e-voting, precisely because I think that the networks aren't stable enough, precisely because I think that the technology that is being used isn't mature enough, even though we do have more mature technology.
You are comparing what we have with something that we do, with something that we don't have,
Yeah. Would you ever trust e-voting, if you thought it was secure enough?
If I did it, yes.
If you could check, if I can look at a blockchain and see that my vote is there and is correct, and I assume, and everyone else can do the same, it's publicly verifiable.
Yes. And I totally agree with you on the blockchain thing. I think blockchain this is one of the few uses of blockchain that is absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's not really. I mean, that's the whole use of blockchain. Blockchain was created basically to resolve the consensus problem, and consensus is achieved, through votings, and that can be a SHA hash, or it can be a vote for the U.S. presidential election. It's consensus is based on
We're
voting.
a blockchain podcast now.
And an election is a consensus problem.
Jose, if you were to use blockchain though, would it show that you had voted, or would it show how you voted?
Both.
So it would depend on the blockchain implementation that you did, but you could have both, and it doesn't mean that it would necessarily be a privacy issue, because you could have a degree of interaction where you, Saskia, you have this ID that was you generated. If you wanted, you generated it, only you know of your ID, and then you use that ID to vote. And as long as you don't share that ID with anyone else, and it's never been through anyone else's hands, you would be able to go into the blockchain and see that your vote is there, and it was voting for the guy that you voted, guy or girl or whatever.
How would you check that more votes have been added?
Well, you wouldn't check that, but everyone else could check their own votes.
Yeah, you'd have the consensus. You'd have the network consensus, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't protect you against people making fraudulent votes, adding IDs, illegal votes.
You can do this with public keys.
Okay, but that's where the blockchain will come in, because you will also need to mine, a specific block. It's not you can just manually, magically add it.
So there'd be some process that does the verification.
You could even do public-private key cryptography for this kind of thing, right? You get a private key to make the vote and stuff like that. And the blockchain is actually a good solution for this.
Do you think but I mean, do you think this is something that is easily implementable? So when you're putting
it can be implemented, yes.
There's cryptocurrencies coming up every day, I mean, how can we not implement this in the space of 4 years?
No, I'm talking about usability.
I mean, in terms of usability, it can be anything. It could be an app. It could be still a machine. You go there and you push a button on the machine. Maybe you scan your card or your ID or something. Push a button.
I don't really trust the machine thing.
Yeah, I don't trust the machine thing.
Yeah, I think there does need to be an element of a hybrid system. So I remember when we were doing the Brexit stuff, and my nan, who's now died, didn't know what to make of the situation. All she was interested in was that young people would be protected. So she asked my parents, what's best for the kids? And they said, what's best for the kids, in our opinion, is that we stay within Europe. But the reality is she was kind of carted down to the polling station in a wheelchair, wheeled in, and then had to kind of make a mark on a box with a pencil. I mean, is this something realistically we can expect multi-generationally that people would be able to use?
Yeah.
We can make something that can be multi-generational. I fully believe we can do that. I mean, Jesus, Jamel could code 2 radio buttons in about 10 seconds. He's probably doing it right now. I see 2 radio.
Go on my website. You can vote for the president.
Sorry, this was based on the trust question that Jay put forward.
So something that everyone trusts.
So my nan would have trusted. So if my dad put an account up for her and voted on her behalf, then she would have trusted that. But that's not democracy, because my dad could have voted whichever way he wanted to. You know, I just think there's more subtleties to this.
Well, your nan also trusted your parents to that, you know, the best thing for the children would be to stay in Europe, for example, in your example.
Absolutely,
right?
but she still put the mark in the box
she,
herself. So at the end of the day, if she'd have gone into that voting booth and thought, I hate my grandchildren, they are awful human beings, and then voted like for Brexit, which she may have done. I'm pretty sure she didn't, but she may have done. It still would have been her final choice.
Do you think electronic voting system would take that away from people?
Well, she wouldn't have been able to do it with an electronic voting system. But I think there are benefits.
Okay, so I think there's 2 options there. So the first one is she could just, instead of talking to your parents, she could talk to, you know, someone else who also knows and also wants Brexit, and she could still vote for Brexit. The second option is what, you know, Chippy was mentioning earlier, where there might be, you know, some form of an analog scheme still, where she can still go in person and then votes, and that vote will supersede whatever electronic vote she had before.
There isn't that the system that they use in some of the states where they scanned in the vote that was done manually?
So their machines, a lot of the time, as I said before, they have the paper-based systems where you do make a mark and then it gets scanned in and then it counts, like it detects where the mark is.
Yeah, but that idea is to basically, you know, remove human error during counting, and also try to provide some trust to the counting method. Because, I mean, even if whoever's counting is the most honest person on earth, they will still, you know, they're counting, you know, 200 million votes, they're still going to mess up. So that's kind of the idea, but there's still so many trust issues there, because, I mean, who implemented these machines? Who verified these machines? How do I know? How can I verify that the machine actually, you know, counted my vote? And where does that vote go afterwards, you know?
So,
I mean, there's so many things and so many ways where things can get messed up in transit. While, you know, with the example of the blockchain, for example, you could forever go back and verify every vote.
So I guess we all agree that it is possible to have a perfect electronic voting system. Do we think
it's definitely possible to have something way, way better in every single aspect than
what we have
you
now?
know, a paper-based.
But what do we think? Do we think that there was fraud in the States?
I believe that there was definitely fraud in this election, if there was definitely fraud in the previous election.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely there was fraud, you know, in one way or another, probably in every election, and also, you know, all the time for both parties. It's a matter of, in this case, but in particular, I guess it's a matter of, does the fraud that did exist, is it significant enough that it actually changed the way that the election should have gone? But I think that's unlikely.
I guess the reason why I said flippantly it doesn't matter is because the US already has gerrymandering, it already has lobbying, it already has a bunch of different things that are going to be way more influential than fraud, right? Yeah, of course, the system is still rigged across different areas and things like that. That is a topic that I don't want to get into, because you know what? As much as I hate Trump, I'm not going to fucking invalidate his win, because he did win according to the system in the US.
like at the end, I do want to talk about the what was the guy's name? Hursty, I think Hursty hack, where he did demonstrate how he could like change votes. This was in 2005, I think. I did take a quick look at what he was doing. I didn't understand the details. It was something about like voting for someone like -5 times and voting for someone else +5 times, so the machine would count it as like a baseline, and you still be able to take votes off of someone. Like, it was an interesting thing to read about, but I'm not really sure the details. So yeah, I mean, there's all, I guess, with all technology, there's going to be issues. It's just trying to figure out, can we develop something that has fewer issues
Of course,
than what we currently have?
We can develop mathematically verified software. We can develop mathematically verified kernels. We can develop mathematically verified operating systems, for God's sake.
But then you have the issue with people trusting it. But now we have the issue where people go to vote in person, and there's, there's people trying to stop them or whatever. So I guess there's never going to be a perfect voting system. It's just trying to find something that works best.
Maybe we should take voting away from people and, go for something like the DPRK. They seem to have a system that's quite stable politically.
I would put Ali in charge and let you run everything.
Oh yes,
for everyone,
put me in charge. Yes.
I mean, it is technically stable. Yeah.
It's pretty stable.
If by stable, if you mean doesn't change, then I think that's true.
In a sense.
It's technically stable, yeah. So I guess none of us have any solutions to what's going on. None of us can say for sure whether fraud happened or not. But what we can say is...
Not only do we not have anything to say, but we shouldn't say that. We should totally stay in our lane when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, Well,
we're security experts.
We are security experts, but also this is the problem with security. It's like one of the main problems with security is the minute we see anything, we have to have an opinion and we have to think that we're right. But we're not specialists in this area. And I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I'm really welcome the discussion that we're having.
But as experts, we should be able to say whether it's possible that there was fraud in the election. Literally,
we're saying whether it is or whether it isn't and what the implications are. But what we shouldn't be doing is solutionizing what the resolve is for this.
No, of course not. But I'm asking, like, I guess as of now, we can't say either way whether there was or wasn't fraud. It seems like with the current system, it's possible, but I don't think there's been any evidence of it.
Exactly. And also what we have to say is what we can't account for is the understanding of the politics that goes on behind it, because that's not something that we've been exposed to enough.
So everything that we see is just the media side of it. It's all the conspiracies and stuff. We haven't actually been presented with any facts, so you can't draw any actual conclusions.
I was talking at Congress, ICSC Square Congress with Kat Chapman, which I did, I think, last week or the week before. And we were literally talking about media manipulation, and we covered Trump, and we talked about all sorts of areas. And this is an ongoing project that she and I have been doing for about 18 months now, and it's been through many iterations, and March knows about it quite well because we've talked to him quite a lot. We were talking to you about the Julian Assange stuff and the stuff with Chealsea Manning. You've put a lot of input into the project in terms of the insight that you've given us. Because we're trying to be as unbiased as possible, which is quite difficult, but we're trying to be as unbiased as possible. But when we were looking through in terms of what we were going to do about the voter situation, it was just so hard to find anything that actually matched up in terms of balanced reporting with this. We actually removed it from the presentation, and we replaced it with an analysis of the figures that are quoted every few months about how many women there are in cybersecurity, because what we could do for each of those headlines was trace it back to the source of where that research had come from, then dissect the research and look at the methodology. When we tried to do something similar for the election, we just got caught up in just the weirdest kind of rabbit hole. And it's a much larger piece that's going to take a lot more research and a lot more kind of resource than we have. This is like, there's crazy conspiracy going on here.
So maybe it is our responsibility to try and provide the information based on our technical expertise to allow people to be able to either trust these systems or understand where the weaknesses are.
I would just like to add that all of that would be, a non-issue if we had true electronic voting.
And on that note, I guess it's probably time to wrap things up. Before we end, does anyone want to plug anything?
Yeah, I was just going to plug that Chealsea Manning has a Twitch channel at the moment. I believe it's XYZ Chealsea is her username, but I'll be able to find out. I'll find it out, and you can put it in the link in the podcast description or something.
I will do that.
But yeah, you should go see her chill out and play some like Stardew Valley or something.
Everyone seems to have a Twitch, and so do I. I guess I'll put that in. So me and Jose, we have our Cyber Senpai's Twitch stream. If anyone wants to come and chat with us sometime and talk cybersecurity, see us,
What does Cyber Senpai mean?
Cyber Senpai?
Senpai.
Senpai. It means that we're not quite as good as a sensei, but more experienced than someone that's like brand new to it.
Cyber Senpai, an anagram of Cyber Senpai is Cyber's penis.
I have nothing to add to that.
Saskia figured that. Saskia figured that one out.
With the name Cyber Senpai.
Anyone else? No.
I'd like to.
I have a plug.
Okay, go ahead.
Buy Rex.
God damn it! I was just going to do that.
I mean, it's not for sale yet, but you can still sign up for free. Chippy's worked terribly hard on the website. It looks beautiful.
I can't take compliments.
Jose, do you want to tell people about your other podcast?
I mean, I don't think it's relevant because it's in Portuguese. So
maybe people are learning Portuguese.
If anyone listens to Portuguese stuff and wants to listen to two guys talking in Portuguese about gaming and random shits like fallacies, you can look for Floppy Talks on YouTube.
Oh my god, did you literally just say phallic and then floppy?
It's not phallic, it's fallacies.
Fallacies.
Imagine how
like
smooth their
logic
Portuguese accents are. You can sleep to this podcast.
Oh yeah.
I know at least one other Portuguese hacker that may at least be aware of the podcast. So if he makes it through to this part, then maybe you'll gain one more viewer.
I'm not even sure if the podcast will make through to this part.
So there we go. If you like Portuguese, you need to be listening to Floppy
or
Phallic.
if you just like listening to Jose's voice, there you go. It's
That was so fiery.
Right?
Exactly. A nice noise to sleep to.
In
that case, thank you everyone. It was fun chatting, and I'll catch everyone next time.
Bye bye, guys.
Nice.